Hello and welcome to the latest Society for the Environment webinar. Today we are focusing on the process of applying for Registered Environmental Practitioner registration, also referred to as REnvP. This is very much an overview and we will let you know how to find more details and point you in the right direction to more of the specifics of what you need to do for your application, depending on your chosen pathway. And we'll talk about those pathways in a few moments' time. To start with, who are we? Well, I am Phil Underwood, officially the Society's Engagement Manager. I am joined by Jeff Atkins, who is our Head of License Delivery and Quality. Our aim today is to shine a spotlight on the key standard procedures involved in reaching your RFP goal, then answer as many questions as we can towards the end. For those watching the webinar as a recording, or if you need to leave before the Q&A section, please feel free to contact myself or Jeff with any questions that you have using the email addresses on your screen. We are now going to turn our cameras off. That's to avoid our oversized heads getting in the way of our beautiful slides. But we will be back later on for the Q&A. These email addresses are also going to appear on the slides later on as well, so you can have a little bit of a reminder at that stage. So if you're frantically scribbling, don't worry. Before we delve into the world of RFP registration, I'll start off with a bit of background to the Society for the Environment, just to help with understanding and to give an idea of why we exist. So our core role is to hold the register for competent environmental professionals who have met and continue to meet a level of competence in their environmental work and their overall professionalism. There are currently just over 8,000 registered environmental professionals who are known as our registrants, and I hope that many of you watching today will join those 8,000 in the coming weeks or months. And we do all of this in partnership with 26 professional bodies. This is our vision and why we do it. The sentence on your screen is a touch long-winded, but essentially through Royal Charter, we exist to champion sustainability through environmental professionalism. We believe that proven, competent environmental professionals across all sectors are key to a sustainable future. So put simply, we want the decisions that impact the environment to be made by those with externally verified, peer-reviewed competence. These are the three different professional registrations that we regulate. We've got the Registered Environmental Technician, or RFTech, the Registered Environmental Practitioner, or RFP, and the Chartered Environmentalist, or CEnV. And these registrations are positioned in a kind of progressional way. Some will use RFP as a demonstration of a solid commitment to being on that progressional ladder towards chartership, for example. But having said that, RFTech or RFP might be the competence level for you, with CEnV being unrealistic. And that is, well, at least for now, and that is perfectly fine. Essentially, these are the global benchmarks for excellence in environmental practice, ensuring our workforce and businesses are equipped to tackle the environmental crises we are facing currently and in the future. So together, the plan is that we can build a more sustainable future. Hence our vision on the last slide. Before we go into the how to apply, I'd like to give a taster to the why you might want to apply. The key benefits that registrants stated in our 2021 survey, which was our latest one, were increased credibility with clients and stakeholders, increased confidence, as in self-confidence, and increased career opportunity. The credibility theme always comes out on top, and that's a massive benefit. With the RFTech, RFP, or CEnV letters after your name, you are basically telling people that you've gone through that external verification and you have been verified as a knowledgeable, up-to-date professional when it comes to environmental good practice, commitment to said good practice, and your technical ability. Employers see benefits as well through proven staff competence, helping to win work, and improving their brand and demonstrating that their staff working on projects are at the top of their game. So when you go through tenders, that kind of thing, when you put the letters or the full versions of RFTech, RFP, CMV, then that stands out, which we see time and time again. The last word from me for now, achieving REnvP will basically put you on par with 8,000 environmental professionals from a vast range of sectors and roles and across the world. And they're all making evidence-based decisions with proven competence and professionalism. You will be part of that global community of professionals who have committed to use their expertise to address environmental challenges and progress any opportunities available. So the CMV, REnvP and RFTech registrations bring you all together. And we think that is hugely important to creating a more sustainable world. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to Jeff to run through the core of today's webinar. So thank you very much for joining us, Jeff. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. Today we are focusing on REnvP and how to become a registered environmental practitioner. Now, these are the 4 or 5 steps you need to take to become REnvP. Firstly, join one of our licensed professional bodies. We call these the routes to REnvP. These are the names, logos of the 10 professional bodies we currently license to assess and register appropriately qualified and experienced individuals for REnvP. You need to join the one most appropriate to your sector and speak to them about your plans to apply. Now, these are the 10 out of the total of 26 professional bodies which we license, and we will soon be announcing the 27th. Anyway, your professional body will provide you with an application pack to complete and submit for assessment. Apart from completing an application form, they may ask you to include your CV and CPD record in your submission. If they are satisfied with your application, you may be invited to attend an interview. Now, this could be if your professional body believes it is a reasonable adjustment, or it's an inseparable membership requirement, or that you will benefit from that interview, or it believes it will be appropriate, but it's not mandatory. So that's why it could be that you'll have an interview. Now, the final step before registration is to sign our Code of Professional Conduct. All the way through your application, your professional body will tell you how they run their REnvP assessment process and of any associated fees. When you apply for REnvP registration, you are providing evidence that you meet all 11 REnvP competencies. Now, these are in 4 groups. On the screen, you can see A and B, and these will focus on your sector, and as such may be contextualized by your professional body. And these are the C and D competencies, which are sometimes known as soft skills, but they are just as important as A and B. Please note competence D1, which is about doing CPD to maintain and enhance competence in area of practice. This is important in not just gaining, but retaining your REnvP registration. Now, we've gone through that quite quickly, so here's a quick reminder of the 4 or 5 steps you need to take in your journey to Registered Environmental Practitioner registration. Join one of the currently 10 licensed professional bodies. Speak to them about your plans to apply. Complete and submit your application. If invited to, attend your interview. And finally, sign the Code of Professional Conduct. And I'll stress again, your key contact throughout the application assessment process is your professional body.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Back over to me. So what we're going to do now is picture the scenario. You have been successful in achieving your RFP goal. Congratulations. What happens next? Well, firstly, your professional body will inform us of your successful application, which will trigger us to add you to our official register here at SOCM. We will send you your official RFP certificate, and we'll send that in the post with an RFP badge, which you can wear with pride. You will be added to the online directory of registrants on our website, which you can use to prove your RFP status to clients and stakeholders and future employers and so on. That's more of a registrant checker. And you can start to use the CM logo on your email signatures and the RFP letters after your name, maybe on LinkedIn, on your CV, and anywhere and everywhere that you can possibly think of, really. We do see a lot of new RFPs and CMs and more showcase their new registration on places like LinkedIn. So feel free to join them. Okay, so you've gone through the effort of gaining RFP registration. You probably want to keep hold of it. 3 key steps to do this include remain a member of one of our licensed professional bodies. Now, this could be the professional body you achieved your RFP with initially. So say you applied through StarUM, you could stay with them as a member, and therefore that's the first step to continue as a RFP. Now, you can also transfer to one of the other 9 professional bodies that are currently licensed to award RFP for whatever reason that might be. So as long as you meet their membership requirements and so on, you could do that if you wanted to. As Jeff said a few moments ago, the second point on this slide is quite important, not just in gaining, but retaining your RFP registration. You will need to continue to complete and record appropriate CPD activities each year with your chosen professional body. And that CPD might vary depending on the professional body you choose. For example, if you're going through one of the more environmentally core focused professional bodies, you're probably doing environmentally focused CPD anyway. If you're doing it through one of the professional bodies that aren't directly linked, then you might have to do a little bit more in terms of the environmental CPD to continue as a RFP, but have a word with them. And finally, you should continue to pay the annual fee to your professional body to cover any costs involved. Beyond those steps, you might want to consider chartered environmentalist registration, but that's not something you need to think about straight away. And it's just an opportunity that's out there if you wanted to go down that route. We're going to finish off our presentation with some quickfire Q&As, although they might not be that quick. The questions are quick, the answers might not be. And these are based on things that we quite often come up when we speak to aspiring registrants, and they kind of crop up as barriers that might be there for, well, perceived barriers for applying for registration. And we're going to take it in turns just for a bit of fun. So I'm going to take the first one. Can I be a chartered engineer, a CEng, and a registered environmental practitioner or an RFP? The very simple answer is yes. Yes, you absolutely can. So you're a highly competent engineer, which is demonstrable through your CEng registration. Absolutely the right thing to do. But beyond your excellent core engineering work, your wider environmental knowledge across areas from air pollution to the low carbon technologies to sustainable urban design to net zero solutions, they can be showcased with an environmental registration such as RFP to go alongside your CEng. And you won't be alone. There are plenty of CEng professionals with RFP as well. And the same goes for your incorporated engineers or IEng. And it's worth noting that if you already have CEng or IEng, you don't need to necessarily rewrite your entire competency application for RFP, because some of the competencies will cross over or are very similar, especially in the C and D competencies, which are more of your soft skills. So don't waste your time. On that note, speak to your professional body to see if there is any, if there are any time-saving options for your RFP application when you have recently achieved an engineering registration. And all of the above applies to those who are maybe chartered scientists or registered scientists as well. It's not just an engineering thing. Over to Jeff for the next one.
Thank you. So how long does the application process take? And that's a very good answer. It depends. Depends on a few things. I guess the main one could be if you need to have, or you're required to have an interview. That would add a bit of time to the process. And it might be that your professional body has application windows, where they give you a date where you've got to submit your application by. If you don't meet that, then you'd have to go to the next application window. That might add a bit more time to the actual process. But when you submit your application pack for it being reviewed and being assessed, and then either an interview, and then being your application being approved, and you're recommended to be registered, I would suggest you're looking at 2 to 3 months as a general guideline. But as with all things related to REnvP assessment, you really should talk to your professional body about their processes, and they can give you some sort of guidance on how long they think the process will take.
Okay, next question. Do I need to meet all of the RFP competencies? Again, the short answer is yes. But you don't have to have a different scenario or a different project or a different piece of work for each competence. You can use different areas of those pieces of work to meet different areas of the competencies. So you can hit multiple at a time. So don't make things more complicated for yourself, is what I'm trying to say.
So I don't have a degree. Can I still be at REnvP? Well, as it says there, yes, you certainly still have the opportunity to be at REnvP. We don't actually put any restrictions or limit on what you need to have academically. All we ask for is that you've acquired a level of knowledge equivalent to, and in REnvP, it's level 5. It's a QCF level 5 qualification. I mean, that's England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Scotland have slightly different, but it would be a level 5 qualification. It doesn't need to be a degree. Or if you haven't got a level 5 qualification, you've got the experience, and you can show that you've got that level of knowledge. This is something that the professional body will advise you on, and it's really up to them to decide whether or not what you're presenting satisfies that requirement to have that level of knowledge.
Okay, so that draws our formal presentation to a close. So once again, if you're watching on the recording, if you need to leave early, please feel free to contact us with any questions via the email addresses on your screen. We're going to start things off with some questions that came in when you first registered to attend this webinar. You had the opportunity to ask a question. So we're just going to go to those to begin with. First one being, I'm currently at practitioner level with IEMA, but wondering about how to get registered or go straight to CEnV. Now, IEMA is one of the routes to becoming a registered environmental practitioner, so that's a good start. So as you are at the practitioner level with IEMA already, that's you're well on the way to becoming an RFP. Now, IEMA is a bit of a different case to a lot of our routes because the practitioner level, so PIEMA at IEMA, is linked directly to the REnvP registration. So in that particular instance, I would speak to IEMA, and it may be a case of confirming that you are still meeting the competency requirements and that you're still doing CPD and so on, which you should be doing anyway for your practitioner level with IEMA, and they might be able to put you very, very close to becoming an REnvP, but speak to them. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
No, I mean, it's really have that conversation, and you might find that there's just a couple of things that you need to provide just to make sure that you are meeting the standards, meeting the competencies.
And to draw a distinction, I believe that person who asked that question was also a member of CIWM, so the Chartered Institute of Waste Managers. And they're not currently, they don't currently have the ability to register people as registered environmental practitioners because they don't have the license for it. So there's a distinction there between IEMA and CIWM, which is probably worth noting, as long as I'm not confusing anybody.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is, what is the difference between the environmental practitioner and the environmental technician registrations? That's REnvP and REnvTech. And I guess the same could be said for CM as well, the differences. Jeff, could you start that one off?
Well, to try and put it simply, it's levels. As I just mentioned, you've got REnvP, which is positioned at level 5. You've got REnvTech, which is the technician award at level 3, and you've got chartered environmentalist at level 7. So it's the level of knowledge you've got and what level you're working at, really, that is the big differences. Still got competencies to meet, but the actual level of achievement that you need to provide evidence of depends on the particular award.
Yeah. If you were in the Chartered Environmentalist version of this a couple of weeks ago, you may notice that the competencies that we put on your screen are exactly the same on CM and REnvP. Now, what you need to do there is look at the wording that's below those competencies, which we don't show on the webinar because that's a lot of detail. But you'll be able to find that wording within the application packs that you're given by your professional body. And it will give you this, it will certainly give you an idea of the distinction between those different levels. It's basically the different wording that's used, whether it's kind of strategic leadership level, whether it's kind of middle management level in terms of your presenting your leadership skills, or whether it's more just the technical ability. It's all distinct in that sense. So have a look at the wording, the more detailed wording within your application packs. You'll be able to see that. That makes sense, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's have a look at some of the questions that have been asked live on the webinar. How do you ensure consistency when there are more than 20 bodies which can provide the REnvP status or other statuses? So if to become a chartered environmentalist, there are over 20 bodies to apply through. With REnvP, there are 10. But the question still applies. How do we do the consistency, Jeff?
We carry out regular license reviews. You've heard that they're licensed professional bodies. We license them to assess and appropriately experienced and qualified individuals to be registered. And we have regular license reviews where we look at all the things that they are doing. We look at all their policies and procedures and make sure that they're meeting our criteria and that they are consistent amongst each other, that they're all providing a sort of minimum level of service as well. So
Yeah.
that's how we do it, and we have regular sort of spot checks of files that we do. We ask them to provide files that we ask for, specific ones, And yeah, I mean, it's basic quality assurance, but that's how we ensure consistency.
Yeah.
And if we don't find consistency, we give them improvement actions to ensure that there is.
So that they're aligned across all of the 26
Absolutely. Absolutely.
plus professional bodies. And the word, I think a key word is, Jeff used it earlier, contextualized. That
Yeah.
it's worth noting that obviously all of our standards are the same, so those competencies are the same across all of those professional bodies, but ways in which you can meet those competencies and those standards can vary across the different sectors that you work in. Some of
Yeah.
it's more formal education, some of it's not, some of it's they're all very different.
Yeah. I mean, it could be something as simple as the language used in one sector doesn't really mean too much in another sector.
Hmm.
Therefore, the language of the A competencies, for example, could be changed so that the person trying to see if they meet those standards, meet those competencies, understands what they've got to do rather than not. So it's that's what can be meant by contextualization.
Yeah, and we're getting towards the reasoning why we're set up like this. It's because there are such a variety in terms of those who can become a chartered environmentalist, which makes sense because there are environmental
Yes,
professionals working in every sector. But how would one professional body, or us, how would we assess whether an arboriculturalist is a chartered environmentalist against whether a waste manager or whatever it might be, air pollution specialist,
exactly, exactly,
or a building professional? To have that range of knowledge in one body would be tricky. So we, in a way, we lean on and trust the professional bodies within that sector who have that specific knowledge, who can contextualize our standards to their sector, and we give them the ability to be able to do the
exactly,
assessing
exactly. But to
for us
just
in
to
a way.
confirm that we are making sure that they are doing things properly on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, that quality assurance is thorough. Um,
So there you go. That was a long answer, wasn't it? Crikey.
yes.
Next question being, how many case studies are you expected to submit for assessment? Now, are case studies a requirement, or is that suggesting how many case studies can you use to showcase that you meet the competencies?
I think that's one of those, we can't answer that question because that's something that your professional body would be able to answer. I mean, I could suggest that you submit enough to make sure that shows that you meet the competencies, and you will know how many that is. But as Phil said earlier, you might have worked on one project that meets lots of the competencies. You don't need to provide 3 or 4 examples. You've got a good, solid example of a project you worked on. You've achieved lots doing it, and it covers most. So it might just be 1 or 2, or it might be that actually they're so varied, those projects, those case studies, that you need to provide 6 or 7. It's not easy to give an answer to that one, other than really speak to your professional body,
Yeah,
and they will advise. They may give you a mentor who could give you advice on how how many case studies you need and what type of evidence you need to provide, and that's something that you should speak to them about and ask for.
absolutely. That makes sense. All case studies and all projects and so on are all different. They all vary in sizes and their complexities. So we wouldn't be able to say
I think
you can
I
only
think
have one
I
case
think
study
all
per.
I'd add is you only really need to provide enough evidence to show that you meet the competencies. You
Yeah,
don't need to provide over. There's a minimum that you need to provide. There's not. You don't get an A star. You're registered or you're not. It's
yeah,
it's it's that simple.
yeah. I suppose the RFP plus would be probably CM. So,
Well, there you are.
beyond
Yeah, yeah, could be.
but beyond that, it's tricky. So, next question is, usually a degree is required. So, how is that basic education requirement replaced by just experience? My first comment on that is, um, when you say usually a degree is required, I wouldn't say that's the case. You need to have a level 5 level of knowledge. That doesn't necessarily need to be a degree, and it's not necessarily the usual. But in any case, how does the experience side of things go towards meeting that knowledge criteria, Jeff?
Well, you're showing through the academic side of things that you've got that level of knowledge and understanding, and that you're working at that level and thinking at that level. If you've got a degree, bachelor's degree, level 5, level 6, then you've got that to show that you are working. So you wouldn't need to provide other evidence. If you haven't got that degree, then you could provide other evidence. Now, we ask you will be asked to provide, and I'll read it, possess sufficient relevant and practical experience to demonstrate the competencies. Now, it's a combination of, if you haven't got particularly strong academic attainment, then you would provide more in the form of that practical experience, and get that balance, but that would lean more towards the experience than it would the academic.
Yeah.
But again, this is something that the professional body would decide. That word trust, we trust them to know what meets the competencies in their sector, and therefore they are in best place to say, okay, so a degree would be good, but you haven't got a degree, so that doesn't mean you can't do it. You can't go through the process.
Yeah. What I'm hoping we're getting across here is that there is a good amount of flexibility around this,
Yes.
rather than being rigid around you have to have a certain degree to become an environmental professional. Now, there's obviously a way up between that flexibility and providing confusion, but there are different routes and there are different, we know that people go through different education routes. We know that people have different career routes. So there are different options for you to showcase your credentials. That's what
Yeah.
we're aiming for. So if this is confusing in any way, then we apologize, but hopefully with a bit more explanation, we can help with that and make it a bit clearer. Moving on to another question. If I'm a fellow at IEMA, how would this reduce the time of CM application? Now, given that is CM related rather than RFP, I'm going to say speak to IEMA, and I would recommend speaking to IEMA anyway. I think that would be our answer.
Absolutely.
Because if you are a fellow at IEMA, then in all likelihood is you could and might say should be a chartered environmentalist. But I'll leave that with your conversation with IEMA, but worth having that chat. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
No, definitely.
We
That's
look forward to your CM application, basically.
yeah.
Um, Now, next one is I'm currently applying for PIEMA membership with IEMA after passing the certificate in environmental management. Should I gain practitioner level status with IEMA first, then apply for RFP second? I believe you can apply for both at the same time. And that would seem like the most streamlined way to do it in numerous ways with your time and your efforts. So speak to IEMA and they'll be able to guide you through that process, which is pretty smooth, I believe. So that's the end of the questions on the live Q&A, but I think I saw some coming in via the chat, which is going to confuse me, but let's have a look. In the long form version of your CV, you are meant to list projects. Can these be kept more vague in the cases of sensitive projects or clients?
Yes.
Yes.
But what version of your CV and what is required will depend on your professional body. But they're not gonna say, well, no, you can't. You can put enough detail in. If it's about using sensitive details, then they're not
Yeah.
gonna punish you for that, if that's the right expression.
No. Also worth bearing in mind that if you can try to keep your examples specific to you rather than the overall context of the project, sometimes might help. So you might not have to skirt around too much of the It's
Absolutely. It's
developed.
about, it's not your team, it's not your company that's applying for REnvP registration, it's you. So it's your involvement. It's not the team effort. It's what you did in that team and what you did in that project. So that's what you should include in your application.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the next question. For someone who has an MSc in environmental management, what is the benefit of registering for RFP? I need a little bit more clarification. Fair enough. One of the reasons is you are showcasing your experience alongside your knowledge. So the environmental management MSc would cover the kind of knowledge and the qualification side of the deal.
Yeah.
Whereas how do you then showcase how you have implemented that knowledge in a workplace or in a, doesn't have to be work, can be volunteering, can be various things, but how have you then implemented that? That's how you can showcase, that's how you become a registered environmental practitioner or a registered environmental professional. It demonstrates a more rounded individual in terms
And,
of your experience and your knowledge and your professionalism.
and it's not just you saying, I can do this. It's not you just provide it's someone independent assessing you to see and confirming that you have reached that level and you've got that level of competence, you've got that level of skill and knowledge, and you are somebody that should be a registered environmental practitioner. And that will add not just post-nominals to you, but it will add a lot of credibility to what you say.
The other element to add to that is if you were to have an environmental management MSc, that's a snapshot in time. You have that knowledge of what's happening then and there, and maybe a bit of history behind it. But if you gained that degree 10, 15, 20 years ago, does that still say that you're up to date with environmental knowledge? Some of it will still be the same, but think about how how technology moves on, how our understanding, how science moves on. Um, how do you then showcase that you are up to date with that? That's again where professional registration comes in. You're showcased through continuous CPD and assessment of that CPD that you are up to date. So that's another
I
reason
think
why.
the other word is relevant. Yeah, because what was relevant 5 years ago may not be now. So showing that you're keeping up to date, keeping your competency up to date, but also maintaining your relevancy
Yeah.
is a big thing. So I would suggest that's important.
Okay. Interesting question next. Can you use experience that you gained years ago, or should you keep your experience to within the last couple of years? And I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a mixture, but I think Jeff might be able to
Well,
help with this one.
I think, yeah. I mean, if it is recent, recent is probably better. So yes, I would say you should try and keep your experience to within the sort of last couple of years. But if to show that the evidence you've got that you meet a particular competence is from a project that you completed 10 years ago, as long as you can show that you still got that level of competence and you can meet that competence, then you'd use it. But as with everything, your professional body will be able to, and or your mentor,
Hmm.
if you've got one, will be able to tell you, well, that's you. Can you provide something that is a bit more recent, and it's that relevant word again.
If you were involved in a project that started 10 years ago, for example, and you were involved in the implementation of a certain element of that project that has continued to be extraordinarily beneficial to the project over the course of that 10 years, then why
Yeah,
wouldn't
of
you say something about that,
course.
for example?
Maybe a thought is that, I mean, if it's a major thing that is still, yeah, you were involved in setting up of something that everybody knows and it's still in. I mean, we had we've got somebody that was involved with the 2012 Olympics, who's a registrant, and it's not the only thing that they've been involved in, but it was a major thing. Everybody saw what they did to that stadium and so why wouldn't you use that? Because it's still there, it's still working, and what they added is still relevant. There's no simple, easy one answer fits all.
Yeah. There's no more questions come in live, but I'm just going to head back to a couple of the questions that are asked whilst you guys registered for the webinar.
Yeah.
First one being, what's the easiest route to RFP? And the answer to that is there technically isn't an easier route to RFP because all the standards are exactly the same. So you still need to meet the standards. What we would say to that is the contextualized side of things. If you are what's an example? If you are an environmental scientist, then it might seem more appropriate or maybe easier to go through someone like the Institution of Environmental Sciences, because that directly links to what you do. So you can contextualize your examples to the examples that they would expect through that sector or that area of discipline. Whereas if you try to apply through another professional body that isn't linked to that, then you might struggle a bit more to contextualize that. I've given a bad example because environmental sciences goes across loads of professional bodies, but hopefully you understand what I mean.
It's not, I mean, it's an example. Yeah.
Okay, good. That gives you an idea. Do I need to have specific qualifications to be successful or to be a successful applicant? And the answer to that is no, you don't need to have any specific qualifications.
No, I mean, that's what we were saying before. It doesn't, you don't necessarily need to have a qualification. You need to be able to show that you are thinking and working at that level 5 for REnvP and have that level of knowledge.
That's right. And you can apply from anywhere around the world. So we're aware of the differences across the education and training opportunities in different countries across the world, which differ. So we need to be aware of that. We need to ensure that everyone has accessibility towards professional registrations to showcase their abilities and competencies and so on. So that's where we are aiming to be as flexible as possible, whilst very much keeping to the standards. Okay. Can't see any more questions coming in live. There we go. Basically, that's it from us today. So thank you very, very much for listening and taking part. And thank you to Jeff for your insights.
Absolute pleasure.
If you are watching the recording on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel to gain notifications of new videos and webinar recordings, and hit the like button. That's always useful. If you are watching on our website, then please click on the YouTube logo in the bottom right to get to the subscribe and like options. And we will see you in the next webinar. Thank you very much for watching, and good luck with your RFP applications.
Thank you.